you're back. So are we. It's Coded with AI, episode 12. I'm Carl Franklin. That's my friend Jeff Fritz from Microsoft. What up, Jeff?
Oh man, it's that week between Christmas and New Year's. I went to a football game at Yankee Stadium. It was like a throwback to something in the 60s when they used to play football at Yankee Stadium, the big baseball stadium down in the Bronx. It was a fantastic time.
Oh, was it a pro? Wasn't a pro team?
No, a college game. It was Penn State versus Clemson, and I had a great time. Cool. It was my first time in Yankee Stadium.
Well, in case you hadn't noticed, if you're in the Northeast, it's really freaking cold here, but everybody else, I'm sorry, the weather sucks all over the world, and this is just life. Anyway, let's get to what we're talking about today.
All right.
We're talking about Ollama, and in general, we're talking about local tools that run large language models locally. And so there's trade-offs, right? Ollama is the most popular one right now. Microsoft has something coming out. You want to talk about that?
There's a product from Microsoft called Local Foundry that you can install and run on Windows. I believe you can also install and run it on the other operating systems. But you install it, and then there's a limited selection right now here in December 2025. There's a limited selection of models that you can download and use with it. It'll take advantage of your GPU that you have available. It runs mostly at the command line, but it's a series of tools that allows you to interact with the language model at the command line, or you can connect in and interact with it from various APIs in your applications.
That's cool. All right, so that's new.
It's new. It's something that was released, I think, in November. We saw it really start to hit and become publicly available. And there's teams that are investing time in making more models available and integrate more capabilities with Windows in 2026 and beyond.
Okay, so for now, we're going to focus on Ollama. So
Ollama's it's a bit more production ready for you as a developer working locally.
Yeah. So what this is it's not a large language model in and of itself. It's a runtime for hosting large language models.
Yep.
And you access it at the command line, and it basically installs an API that has an endpoint, right, with a port number.
Yep.
And then you can call that from your own machine or from other machines. And it's got some benefits and it's got some downsides, right? So the benefits are obvious. It's local. It's not accessing the internet. This is good news for companies that don't want their developers sharing their screenshots and their code bases and all that stuff, because they might be worried about what the internet-based models might use it for.
Totally. It's
not an unreasonable fear.
It isn't, and the folks at GitHub do have a very clear privacy policy that they've got available for their tools, and there's similar privacy policies available for the other folks, but it's totally understood that folks don't want their content, their IP leaving their network. Maybe even have an air-gapped network. Totally, you want to be able to work locally. Ollama can make that happen for you.
The downside, of course, is that Ollama and its models can't access the internet just by themselves. I mean, if you could do some things with tools and RAG and all that stuff, which we're not going to talk about today, but by default, you can't just say, "Hey, can you ask around on the internet and look around and see if anybody's got a solution to this problem?"
Yeah.
Can't do that. So that's one downside. Another downside is they're typically slower because they don't have big data centers full of GPUs behind them pushing out tokens.
Yeah.
So
it's your model running locally on your hardware, and you need to provide the GPUs and the RAM and the processor that it needs to analyze those tokens, to read through its models. It is not going to be as responsive for you on your little 3070 NVIDIA processor.
Right. And so another benefit is you don't pay a cost per token. You don't have to worry about running out of tokens. However,
your electric bill is going to go up.
That's right. You need a beefy machine to support that thing.
Or machines. Yes.
Yeah. So I have a pretty good GPU on my machine, and I started running it, and I found it was really slow. And it turns out that all of these other applications that are running are using the GPU. And so Windows has allocated a certain amount of GPU for applications, and it's running out. And so things are slowing down. So
Carl, I mean, you just have to stop playing Fortnite over there while it's processing, okay?
Yeah, but I'm talking about Visual Studio. I'm talking about Windows itself is using the GPU for all its crazy effects and stuff. Yeah. So you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe I should build a machine, put it in the corner that's just for running Ollama. And you can do that.
Sure.
You can do that. And you can spend as much or as little as you want on that. You probably want a GPU that has, 16 gigs of RAM at least.
Oh, yeah. 16 gigs of VRAM, right?
Yeah, maybe even 24. And Ollama can also use multiple GPUs.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
that'll help with the processing, but the price of the GPUs goes up.
Right. Another option we were talking about just before we started recording here is try using a virtual machine that is loaded with multiple GPUs.
Yep.
And you can do that, but those are going to be expensive to run. Obviously, you can turn them on and turn them off, but they're going to be expensive to run.
Yeah, there's all kinds of AI companies out there that are leasing and running those machines out on the public clouds. So they are hot to come by. Now, because of that, right, you can also run Ollama inside of a Docker container. It's available. You can configure it and pass in the arguments so that the Ollama runtime can access and use your GPUs, whether it's AMD or NVIDIA. It can reach out from the Docker container and interact with them. And that means you can stack it and move them wherever you'd like. But still, you're going to run into this processing bottleneck. Yeah,
you're limited by your hardware ultimately. Hardware, but GPU bound.
Yeah. But for folks, the developers that do want to run locally, of course, there is a community toolkit extension for Aspire that you can install and start up and run an Ollama runtime from a Docker container, choose and have it boot up and save a model locally. Make sure you use a data volume for that so that you're not downloading that model every time. But very easy to set up and get running with. But as Carl, as you're talking about, it's GPU bound. You're gonna run into processing issues at some point.
So we think if you have the money and you can build yourself a box that sits in the corner and is dedicated, that's probably the best thing. Especially if you're, on a small team. If you're a distributed team, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Obviously, the box could be on the internet. Are there security issues? That kind of stuff. You have to think about all that stuff. Yeah, right. And a VPN's going to slow things down too. Maybe Certainly. Not so much, but.
And maybe if you have an old desktop machine laying around, go buy a couple GPUs to stack in there and turn it back on in the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all the prep stuff for running, for running Ollama. Now you have to think about what models you're going to use. And it can load just about any model that's out there. But let's talk about...
There's a catalog out on Ollama. Is Ollama.com?
Yeah. And so I'm just going to go through a few of these. First of all, you have the Llama 3. LL, lowercase a, uppercase MA. So these are the flagship open source models from Meta with variants up to about 70B parameters.
70 billion parameters.
Yeah. So these are best for general purpose conversational AI, complex reasoning, question answering, and instruction following. It's the pros are the strong all around performance. Larger versions produce richer, more nuanced text. And typical users are chatbots, summarization, content creation. So next there's Gemma, and this is Gemma 3:1b, 12b. There's more sizes. Open weight models originally from Google that are available in multiple sizes and quantizations. So these models, even though one was created by Meta, one was created by Google, it doesn't mean that when you're running them locally, they can access Google or they can access Meta, or, you're going to be sharing information. Again, everything stays local. They were just developed. In this case, Gemma, developed by Google.
And I've used Gemma a little bit to do some simple interactions, to summarize text, and it works nicely. Like I have a sample that I show in some of my talks where I summarize weather forecasts. Hey, here's the weather forecast for the week. Give me a summary of the text, the two or three sentences for each of the week's forecast. And Gemma can do that nicely. It takes a few seconds, but it comes back nicely. So there's some good ones out here. Looking at Gemma, you can even find some models that are as small as 300 meg. There's other models that are out there that are 65 gig that you can download from Ollama.
Yeah, and so we didn't talk about this. When you download these models, they take up a lot of disk space, and so they're going to take a while to download too. We were just talking about, hey, why am I out of disk space on my C drive? And I look in my .ollama directory, and holy crap, it's 40 gigabytes. All right, Mistral. This is a highly efficient open source LLM known for strong performance relative to size, especially the 7 billion parameter variants. Best for conversational tasks, moderate content reasoning, local deployment on modest hardware, good quality performance, bang for the buck without needing huge GPU memory.
Now, Mistral was built in 2024. It was the last big Mistral image. So it's not going to have information about anything that happened in 2025. And it sits at about 4.5 gig for you to download it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about DeepSeek. Remember when DeepSeek came out and everybody was freaked out because, it was made in China, and there are cloud versions that, but there's a local version too. And again, you're totally safe running this locally. It's not going to share your stuff with the Chinese government or anything like that. It was developed with a lot less horsepower than GPT, for example, and they proved that you could do more with less with DeepSeek. So this is a model with emphasis on reasoning and contextual understanding in broader discussions. It's best for that, deeper analytical text generation and logic-heavy prompts. So good for analysis, analytic assistance, summarization with reasoning. Phi models. These are open models focusing on balanced capabilities and deep structural understanding. This all sounds like gobbledygook, and it sounds like they all kind of do the same thing, right? But they do have subtle differences.
It's a question of being able to discuss and reason out things from the model. And when you ask it to summarize and do work with various bits of text, what's interesting are the additional features that you can find on some of these models, like the ability to do vision work and analyze images or generate images. That's where things start to get a little bit interesting. Yeah,
like Ollama is a nice visual input thing with Vicuna style text modeling. Mini CPMV. These are vision models. Yeah. But I want to talk about code-focused models, all right? Because these are the ones that we're probably going to end up using as developers. Code Gemma is one.
Yep.
Lighter code generation and completion tasks. Star Coder 2, was trained on multi-language code with strong generation and chat support for programming questions. That's good. But Qwen 2.5-coder. There's a 14 billion version, a 7 billion version, a 32 billion version if you can run it. The 14 billion is often the sweet spot for quality versus speed. So this is explicitly a code model with strong code reasoning and code fixing improvements. And Ollama notes the 32 billion variant has competitive performance with GPT-4o. And that's their phrasing. So again, the performance is going to come down to your machine. Like I said, I have a big machine here, but because my Windows machine is sharing GPU with all these other applications, it was just dog slow. And this is an i9, right?
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah.
But
that's not what it's running on.
It's not what it's running on. It's running on the GPU. And if it's not available, there you go. So I also wanted to note that DeepSeek has a code specific model. So DeepSeek
Look at the size
R1,
of that model.
Yeah, it's huge. DeepSeek R1 is the general model, but DeepSeek Coder is a model that's specifically for code. All right, now we're going to talk about agents because, you know, it's one thing to have an LLM that you can talk to, but it's another thing to have an agent like GitHub Copilot CLI, which we're just in love with, where you can say, hey, look at my code and make this modification, and it just does it, right? I mean, if you could do that and have that run locally, wouldn't that be awesome? So there is an open source tool called Aider, AIDER, that is an agent that can run alongside your LLM, and it will use Ollama. And the cool thing about this is that you can run Aider on your dev machine and have it point to Ollama that's running on another machine because it's just an HTTP endpoint.
So that model in the AI process is somewhere else. You're connected over and still running locally, just like if you're running Copilot locally and connecting out to the big machines out in the Azure cloud.
Yep. So and again, this is something that I ran locally here, and everything was just crawling. So I look at this as an ongoing hobby project, right? I'm going to build an LLM machine, and we're probably going to show some demos of using that coming up in future episodes.
Very cool. Now, remember, Moore's Law, right? We're going to see processing double every 2 years. So I think there's also an inverse to that we're going to see models get smaller and more capable as time goes on, and folks get more focused models that do specific things. So we're going to see our machines get more powerful, and we're going to see the models become more fixed and smaller and more accessible for us to use, which is only going to mean that the things that we're learning how to use now are going to get better over time. Yeah, true that. So that is an introduction to Ollama. We don't have a whole lot of stuff to share to show you right here, but if you go to the README, view the README at the repo associated with this episode, we're going to have instructions on how to install Ollama, how to install Aider, which requires Python and the right version of Python that they recommend, and then the different models and all of that stuff, everything that you need to know to get started on this new wacky hobby of yours, running an LLM locally. Yeah. Don't try and run it on that little server you have in the corner of your office that's running Plex. Don't do that. Nope. Don't. All right. And with that, hey, you know what? If you've got a suggestion or a comment or anything like that, send it to us by email at codeitwithai@appphoenix.com. We read them all. And who knows, maybe we'll use some of your suggestions on a future episode. Until then, see you next week. Take care. Happy New Year. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out blazertrain.com and blazerpuzzle.com for more great content.